and I am the Renku Community Manager. Welcome to the presentation today. As I said, I am Renku Community Manager. I have a PhD in the area of process systems engineering, and I would like to present to you today how to bring your data into life with Renku. I am part of the Swiss Data Science Center. That is, as of 2026, is a Swiss national infrastructure and is originally in the domain of ETH. We have offices both at ETH Zurich and at EPFL. Renku is an open source platform that connects the ecosystem of code, data, and compute resources to empower researchers to build collaborative communities. And precisely the unique feature of Renku is the fact that we bring together all these elements smoothly so we can have reproducible environments and make collaboration across groups and individual research projects very easily. The reason, the motivation behind our platform is the fact that in research, the ecosystem is very heterogeneous. So on the one hand side, we have data sources that are sparse across different systems. On the one hand side, we have data repositories such as Zenodo, Dataverse, and all across Switzerland, there are, each institution provides their own data repositories. For example, NVDAT at the Swiss WSL, so the land and snow and water research center, they also have their own data repositories. PSI, they have their own data repositories, and all across different research institutions. On the data availability, many researchers usually share, either they have their files in their local computers, in their local systems, or they can share files across public source storage repositories. So data as well, the data storage is sparse, so we have different file share systems and cloud storage systems. But data is a very important, it's the key part of research. And on top of that, in order to leverage insights from data, we need to do some kind of analytics and apply some kind of tools. So usually we tend to do some code, and that's why the code repositories is an important part of the research, so that we also have our code well versioned and we keep track of it accordingly. So that's why, in addition to these institutions that they may have their own GitLab or GitHub instances, there are the public instances of GitLab and GitHub. And last but not least, there are different types of compute requirements. So many times the laptops are not enough, or they do not have enough compute power. So for specific tasks, then you need to submit jobs to HPC clusters, or you have some kind of agreements with your institution with some cloud compute providers. So again, the compute infrastructure is very heterogeneous. So that's where Renku comes into play. We have a single place where you can connect all these different resources and you can make easy the collaboration with other researchers. The ultimate goal is to be able to share your research, to find research that others have done and find data sets from other researchers, and last but not least, to be able to trace where your data sets have been used in other projects beyond yours. So who is Renku for? As I mentioned before, we aim for collaborative research communities. So our main goal is for researchers who want to connect their entire research workflow in a centralized place and collaborate across different technical backgrounds without any barriers. And in addition to that goal, Renku is also used for education. We have several courses all across Switzerland that are also being taught in Renku. So imagine that you can set up all the infrastructure, the data, the code, and the compute environments for your students, and it can also be very helpful in that context. And last but not least, we have participated and we continue participating as platform provider for hackathons and other types of single courses and other events. So how does Renku look like? So this is, in the center, you can see a screenshot of a typical Renku project where you have at the very top, you have the sessions. You can have different types of session environments, including R Studio, Rocker, Jupyter, Visual Codium, just a web terminal, or even if you want to create your own launcher, session launcher for the specific software resources that you need, you can also create them. We have also space for the code repositories, and the most important part is the so-called data connectors that we can see at the bottom left part of the slide. And here, as we said, we have already enabled many source or origin for this data, and we are continually working to add additional code repositories and additional resources so that you can easily connect to them. Maybe later, if you have any questions specifically for a given system of data, you just we can discuss them later. So something important when you bring your data into Renku, and something very important to bear in mind, is that data stays in its original source. So in its original location, data is not moved into Renku. The only time that Renku sees your data is when you launch a session. Then when you are using the data, that data is temporarily loaded into your session that is running in Renku. And at the moment that you close the session, the data is not anymore in Renku premises. So as we said, we have different types of data connectors that stand for these external data systems. There are two ways to connect data to your project. On the one hand side, for those data stemming from data repositories, you can link the data set by just copy pasting the DOI of that data source. On the other hand side, if you have a storage provider such as an S3 bucket in Microsoft Azure, in Amazon, or you have your blob storage in Azure, or you have a Switch Drive account or a Polybox account for those who are TTH, or any other web DAV storage provider, you can create a data connector exactly to that source of data. We will show later how can do it in our live tour. So as I already mentioned before, the data stays in the external data system only when the project requests the access to data, if the user has access to that data, and we will see later what it means. Then when you launch the session, this data will be temporarily, as you use it, copied into Renku. This means that only those people who have access through if that data is protected by a keyword, or if that data is has some kind of protection at source with a specific keywords or passwords or tokens, only those people who have access to those will be able to plug in that data. So if the user has the key, then it will be mounted into the session. If the user does not have the key for accessing that external data system, that data will not be mounted. The session will launch, but it will not be mounted. This is especially important to bear in mind because it means that you need to share externally the data passwords or the access outside Renku. Renku does not override any access to your source data. So yeah, the only thing that Renku does through the data connectors is explaining how to access this external data. So yeah, as we said, if you have an external data system, if the collaborators have the access key, they will be able to access the data. Something very important also to bear in mind is that when you are configuring your data connector, we will see this in the live demo, you can decide the visibility of your data connector. So if the visibility of your data connector is public, this means that anyone can see the data connector. Doesn't mean that they can access the data, again, only means that the data connector, the metadata regarding where your data lives, it's open. However, if you want to keep it private, you also have the possibility to say, okay, this data connector keeps private and only myself, the user, or the people that belong to the project, in case that this data is private or is in the domain of a project, only the people that belong to that project can access the data. So for us, data privacy is at the very core. And we can see how it is displayed into Renku. So we can, when you see the data connectors tab, you can see how many data connectors are public, and you see that there are 2 hidden. So only people with access to those data connectors can also see and mount those data connectors. Even for the public data connectors, if they are protected with a key, only the users with the key will be able to mount the data into their sessions. Until here, is there any question? If not, let me very quickly go to Renku. So let me very quickly log out. So you see Renku. You can access Renku through renkulab.io. As I said, Renku is an open source platform, and we also provide a free tier. Anyone can log in into Renku either with their GitHub account, EduID, or their ORCID. In my case, I usually log in with the GitHub account. And once you log in into Renku, you will see your dashboard. This is the dashboard, and now I have my dashboard very full. You will see it according, if it's the first time, you will see empty. But in this dashboard in Renku, you can see the groups you belong to. So you can create groups, and you can be part of these different groups with different access levels. We have also the sessions that are either running or paused, and you can see the full fledged of projects that belong to you and you're working on. So creating a new project is very easy. You just need to go to the plus button and create a new project. You need to give it a name, demo, they love data week. And then you need to give the name of the project and then who is the owner. It can be yourself as a user, or it can be part of your team. If you create a group and you have several collaborators, the project could also be part of the domain of your group. So in this case, I put myself as the owner, and you can also decide which is the visibility. In this case, I will say public visibility. Otherwise, if I say it is private, it will be only visible for myself and any other person who I grant access to my project. So let me create this sample project, and at the very beginning, of course, it has no information. I have here in the overview, as we saw before, sessions, data, code repositories, and you can also add some markdown documentation. And on the settings page, you can at any moment change the visibility of your project, can have a description of your project, and you can also add keywords, for example, data, code, and compute, or any other type of keywords that you want to add. As I said before, you also need to manage or can manage access to some other project members. For example, I will add my colleague here, and I can decide if she has viewer, editor, or owner access. And at any time, you can delete your project, and you can also add session secrets in case you need them. These session secrets are especially important if you want to connect to databases. So SQL databases usually are managed through session secrets. So now let's go to our project, and let's see how we can add different sources of data. Let me start with you add on the plus button. One very important thing to bear in mind in Renku is that you can reuse the data. So any other data that connector that I have created and I have access to, I can just copy paste the data connector identifier and it's automatically brought into the project I am working on. I will show this at a later stage. Let me start with import data by DOI. As I mentioned before, you can have access to Zenodo, Dataverse. We already have integrated NVDAT by simply copying and pasting the DOI identifier. I have here already open prepared Zenodo data set. This is for a paper that was published and basically they have the data for their different tables, and it's several CSV files and R files, everything published in Zenodo. The only thing I need to do is to copy the DOI and go back to the project and paste it into my data connector. Basically, you will see that what Renku does for you, it's brings all the metadata that this project may have, and all the description and DOI is already there. And this is valid for any DOI dataset that is available in Zenodo with DOI. On the other hand side, you may be aware of the Dataverse repositories that are spread across several institutions across the world. In this case, for demonstration purposes, I have added the one from Stuttgart University, but you can see that it's worldwide. It's supported in multiple institutions. So in this case, I have to this Universität Stuttgart. They have these some replication scripts for this paper from 2025. And basically, if I go to the metadata of this data set, I can see the DOI. So just again, I copy paste by DOI, import data by DOI, I copy paste the DOI. And voila, I have here as well the replication scripts. I even have imported, in this case, the keywords that were originally in the data repository. And automatically, Renku creates for me the mount point. So that's how it will be looking like in my session. We can do the same for NVDAT, the same procedure. I have selected here the DOI. I basically need to copy paste the DOI, and which is here, the DOI for this one. And again, the same. If you have in your institution, you have your own data repository, I would be happy to have the integration into Renku. Just you can write to us and we will be happy to create this integration to multiple other data repositories. We have already some of them in our roadmap, but happy to we are open also to other institutions. Another way to create or to import data connectors is by directly creating a data connector. Let me have the example of the S3 bucket from Amazon. So we have Amazon provides some S3 buckets that are public. So in this case, I have the source path is GIAP, that is the genome in a bottle. And the region I don't need to touch is the US East region. I test the connection. The connection to the storage works correctly. So I continue. Then I say the visibility and the access mode is read only. And I give the name how this data connector should look like into my project. I can add any keywords that are interesting for me. And then I add another data connector to my project. In case you have a switch drive account, for example, I have here in the activities domain, we have the Polybox that is similar to the switch drive, the equivalent one. So imagine this folder here. I want to create a link. You can you can add, for example, you can add a password. You can edit the permissions. In this case, I will not add the password just for the sake of brevity, but you can, again, set expiration date and decide which are these permissions. Even in a project, you can decide to have a read-only data connector for some people that is public, and you can have a read and write access data connector for those protected with a password for the people who need to really contribute and write into that folder. So with this, I have here created my link, and I just need to copy this link and go back to my project and say, okay, I have to create a new data connector. As I said, switch drive equivalent in TH is Polybox. I have a shared folder, and I just need to copy paste this public link that we have seen, and I can test my connection. And again, I can provide the name. I say in this case, I want to have it written right. And again, the visibility is public. And then I add my data connector. With all this being said, I can add optionally a code repository. I have already here a data repository ready for adding it into my project. I copy paste the link of my code repository. And then the last but most important part as well is to create a session. So you can select different types of session environments. We provide global environments, so you can create to some RStudio, for example, session, and then you decide how many computer resources you want to allocate. We provide a free tier with up to 8 gigabytes of RAM and 2 CPUs. And in case you would like to have more resources, feel free to reach out to us. We have already in place several agreements with different institutions, and also for the courses. If you need more resources, you just let us know, and we can very easily let you know how it works. Let me add another session launcher with Visual Codium, that is the open source equivalent to Visual Code. And another session launcher with Jupyter, for example. And this global environment has some pre-installed libraries. In case, so whenever I will just start launching one of these sessions, while it is launching, or while they are launching, I will launch one in Jupyter and one in R. While these sessions are launching, I would like to explain you that we do not only allow global session environments that are already predefined, global launchers with specific software, but in case that you have specific dependencies for your project, so specific packages that you would like that are there when you start from scratch, you can select, you need to create the environment.yaml or the requirements txt file in a code repository. As of now, you can only create a Python environment, but by mid of March, you will also be able to create code-based environments with R. And then you can decide which is the user interface, Visual Codium, Jupyter Lab, or just a simple web terminal with minimalist interface. You can see here that we allow different platforms. By default is AMD 64. We currently also allow you to connect to HPC clusters on CSCS. That's why we allow people to create ARM-based architectures images. But in general, this is not something that you need to touch unless you want to start a session in CSCS in more specific HPC-based computer environments. Another feature is that in case you need other types of software that we have not included in global environments, are not available from Create from Code, for example, Julia, Pluto Julia, or you want to use MATLAB, or you need any other kind of software installed, you can create your own Docker image and host it in a Docker container repository. And basically, you just need to copy paste the image tag and We provide some documentation on how to complete the other fields, such as the entry point or the arguments. And basically, you can also create those reproducible environments based on the needs of the software for your project. We provide documentation also on this, but since the focus today is more on the data, I just mentioned this, but just for you to know that it is feasible that you can use other types of environments and software dependencies beyond what we present you here. So my session, you can see here that the sessions both in Jupyter and in RStudio are running. So basically I can go to my session and all the data should be there. So it may take some time to upload, but here we are. So in this, it's a Jupyter type of environment. We can create at any times, we can create notebooks. We also can have access to the terminal. And the most important part that you can see is that all the data connectors that we have seen before, so we have this one from Zenodo. You can see that all the data is directly mounted here. They even provided some R notebooks. So you can also, this is not the best setup because we are in Jupyter. We will see that in the R session, how it looks like. But we can have access to this data. We also have this dependency test that is it's my Git repository, and you can see that Renku detects that is a Git repository, so I can easily use this add-on from Jupyter to commit and push and pull my files while I'm working. We have the GIAP code repository. So you see the genominal bottle dataset from Amazon. We have this dataset from MVDAT as well, with the metadata and the CSV files provided. We have my Polybox folder that is empty, but as we have read and write access, what I can very easily do is I basically can add a new file here. So basically I can create a new folder, output data, for example. I can, I can basically move to trash this untitled folder. For some reason it's not, but you can see if I go to my Polybox and I go here, I can see immediately that these things are happening. So maybe I can remove from here. And then I go back to my session. It will need some time to update, but yeah, basically I can go to my Polybox and work live there. And last but not least, I have these scripts from the Dataverse, replication scripts from Dataverse type of data repository. And basically here I can run my notebook. Maybe the glob is not there, or some of the dependencies are not installed. But all the time I can go to my terminal. I can go and say pip install requirements txt. Yeah, but basically pip install R. And basically it installs live any packages that I want also to install. So this is also feasible. And the same happens with RStudio. So if I go to my RStudio, I will have an RStudio environment with access to my different folders. I have here the Polybox that I updated in the other session. Since it's written right, it's synced live. And I have access to all the others. I think is this one. I can see the R. In this case, I need to install the different dependencies because it's a basic RStudio session without my dependencies installed, but I again have access to the terminal. So that's a bit in general lines the benefits of having everything centralized through Renku. Um, um, yeah. I don't know if there is any question from the audience about anything I have presented. I see something in the chat. Okay, we have two questions. The first one, the legacy Renku CLI tool does not exist anymore, right? So we do not need to configure our code repository in a specific way to use resources on Renku. So the legacy Renku CLI is still there. So it's not installed by default in the, it's not a requirement for the projects anymore. So that's a good point. Regarding the configuration of the, and yeah, you do not need to configure the code repositories in any means regarding Renku. So you are totally free to use it as you wish. So that's true. What we are planning to do is to develop a new CLI that may allow you to work locally, but these are other things that are still under development. And something important that I have not mentioned, but now that we are talking about possible tools that are in the sessions, I would like to share the fact that when you are in the session, and let me go to this Python data science, you can, if you are in the terminal, basically you can go and you can say start tunnel. We have in the global environment and the code-based environment, you can type the command start tunnel. And basically what you can do is it allows you to create a tunnel between the Renku session running in the cloud with your Visual Code local IDE, so especially with Visual Studio Code. You can log in by a Microsoft account or GitHub account, and basically what it allows you is that you can use your Visual Studio Code locally, and all the compute is done in Renku. And when I mean Renku, as of now, it's by default, if you can work in the infrastructure that Renku provides to you. Or you can work also on the CSCS in the HPC infrastructure if you have a CSCS account. In addition, if you have some kind of Kubernetes-based cluster in your institution, or you have an account with Microsoft, AWS, Google that uses some kind of managed services through Kubernetes, you can contact us and we will be happy to set for you your connection to your own cloud compute resources. And basically, Renku will be like the entry point, but you will be computing in your internal compute resources. And this is something that is completely new from the legacy Renku. And it's a very interesting features for those people who, or those institutes and research groups that they already have their own compute resources and want to leverage them. So let me go to the, to the second question in the chat. Is Renku used to provide automated building of Docker images and Docker registry? This is no longer the case. So exactly. So we had our GitLab in Renku Lab, the GitLab that was decommissioned yesterday. And this is not anymore the case. We are not managing for you the Git repositories. We are not hosting any Git repositories. But what you can do, and I have here some examples, is, for example, in GitHub, it's extremely easy, and I have done it for several repositories already, for several cases. You can create your own Docker files here. So for example, I have my Docker file here. It is as easy as adding an action on top of your Git repository. And basically, behind the scenes, GitHub creates a Docker package for you. So in this case, I can go here to my package. I just need to copy my handle, so the image tag, and then I can use it for building my own specific image in case, in this case, in case I need other compute resources. So in case Jupyter, Python, or R is not what I need, or I need a specific configuration or some kind of entry point, something more complex, then you can do it yourself via GitHub or GitLab with other CI/CD pipelines, or just in the Docker repository. So that's another option. Any other questions? If not, what I have also prepared. So yeah, let me see. I can see okay, everything ready here. Good. Great. Thank you, Luca, for asking and participating. What I have also prepared is beyond the tour, I have also some kind of hands-on that we do not need to do that immediately. I will be here in case you want to do them live. I will be here for supporting. I have prepared um, a getting started tutorial. So having the getting started tutorial is as easy as going to rankulab.io, logging in, and then if you go to the bottom of your dashboard, you will see the documentation. And in this documentation, it guides you to our read the docs from Renku. And from there, you can go to the first steps tutorial. There, we're providing you a data set and a code repository, and we're explaining step by step how you can create your first project in Renku. I will stay connected for the rest of the time for those of you who want to do that. For those of you who have not the full time or need to disconnect, I would like to basically share the resources or additional resources. You can see our Git repository is open, so you can all the time go to our GitHub code repository, and in case you find any issues, you can report there and open their comments or provide feedback there, create a pull request or some kind of contribution that you can do. We are open source and we're happy to hear contributions from our users. There is the documentation page as well that I was presenting to you before. So this is the read the docs from Renku, so docs rankulab.io. And we have both guides for users and for administrators who want to deploy Renku. On the Renku documentation site, here we have the first steps tutorial, as I mentioned. So this is what, if you have time, we can do together, or you can do in the rest of the session. And then we have full documentations regarding how to create projects, how to connect with different compute sessions, so how to connect with your local visual code, for example, so how to set up session secrets, as I mentioned, in case you want to connect to PostgreSQL or some kind of other database, you can use it via session secrets. You can also create some dashboards with the data. It's very interesting. So how to create Shining and Streamlit apps. It's also something possible where we have also resources there. We also, as we said, our focus point is collaboration. So we provide guidelines on how to create groups. So we have there our documentation, and it is quite comprehensive. So feel free to go there. We have our community portal. Basically, there we showcase our events. So any events where we are participating basically are posted in our community portal. In this case, we have the one we have here, but we also have other kinds of resources. So we have the contact. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter, everything is accessed through our community portal. And we also have published our roadmap. So all the topics that are in our, not all the topics, but probably the main topics. So you can see what we are currently working on right now. And things that have been developed in the past year, in the past 1.5 years for developing Renku. And yeah, basically we have things that are on our roadmap. For example, SSH into the sessions beyond the tunnels, how to use SSH, and many other things such as working on the metadata We try to keep this also open to the users, to the researchers, so that you can also contribute here and give us feedback. This being said, I can be reached via hello@renku.io. Thank you everyone for your participation. And for those who want to still stay 20 more minutes, I will be happy to be present while you are doing the getting started tutorial. Thank you everyone. Let me see if I have any other questions in the chat. Yeah, not questions, but yeah, thank you very much.